Dígase.
Down with the work. Because they ride for free. That's what it is. If people are driving spending everything, they are driving for free. This is how we feel. Why not something? Yeah, I'm telling you. I know. One day the lady told me, do you know how much I pay? I said, what? The subway fare. Because they think they are cheap. That's the reason. See, they have to regulate. We are not here for free. Our labor, our money, our everything, they give us, they sell us for free. Unbelievable.
It's a shame.
TLC and the city council, that's a shame. They exploit us the most. We are slaves in that. How long? But the mayor is not wanted. They stopped him. But when he started, he wanted to now. Movie? Video? Yeah, you recorded me, yeah? Don't give it to the mayor, okay?
Yeah, and then send it to the mayor.
Send it to the mayor. Let him listen our grievances. Give their life to that. They telling them, we have hardship, we can't take care of our family, we can't take care of our family. Because it's this. It's open to you and right. No, that is their job. Yes, that is their job. They can see it. They don't care on it. They see it. You know, they see it in the life we live. They don't care. Because we are slaves. Who cares about slaves?
Because the TLC, pay the money.
Something is fishing, yeah? Something is fishing. Politicians, they get money for their election. We call it bribe, but they call it contribution. Look the name, beautiful name. Beautiful name, they say contribution. It's cool, they contribute. They are cheap. This is not bribe. Bribe, not contribution. The city council. Give me a minute. They will give them. Yeah. They're losing nothing. They're losing nothing. They keep adding driver, adding car. They are directly, proportionally, they are making money. We are inversely getting down to the ground. See, the more the cars are, the more they make money because they don't spend nothing. No gas, no private party, no mortgage, nothing. I don't want to buy, I don't want to pay, I don't want one lane for 2 is the best. Now that 1 lane for 10, are you going to do that? You are studying. Exactly. Here you go, Bobby. How are you? Yeah, please grab a side.
Driver power! Union power! 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 We want cap now. 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 Driver power. Union power. Driver power. Union power.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I'm Betavi Desai, Executive Director of the New York Taxi Workers Alliance. We called for this action this afternoon because, as you all know, for months and months in the city of New York, thousands of drivers have been campaigning for a cap on new FHV cars. There's a total of 130,000 vehicles, yellow cabs, green cabs, liveries, black cars. 80,000 of them are app-based cars alone. There is an oversaturation on the streets of New York, and the hardworking drivers are paying the price because of it. We know that Uber and Lyft have been spending millions of dollars in order to derail our campaign for fairness. We don't have their money, but we got the truth and we got the facts. And all I can tell you is, in 2015, when the city council backed down from capping the number of for-hire vehicles temporarily, straight out of that victory for Uber and Lyft, Wall Street overloaded them with money, which they used to saturate the streets with cars. By the end of the year, in 2015, the streets were flooded. By January 2016, Uber and Lyft started to cut the fares. And that was the beginning of the race to the bottom. Since then, 6 drivers, 2 livery drivers, 3 yellow cab drivers, a black car driver have committed suicide due to economic despair. 42% of the time, Uber and Lyft vehicles are empty. The city commissioned a study which concluded that 85% of app drivers in New York City earn below the minimum wage, a trend that we see across this nation. There is absolutely no reason beyond corporate greed for why there would be no cap on the number of vehicles. What we are asking for is fair, it's sensible, it's a necessity. At this point, people are so at the edge. If something is not done by the city of New York, tens of thousands of workers will go deeper into poverty. And I mean crushing poverty. The reports that we see every day are about drivers facing foreclosures, bankruptcies, evictions. Drivers after 12-hour shifts talking about hunger. This is unacceptable. The cap is a starting point to help drivers' recovery and put them back on the road to financial stability. We need this cap. It's a modest start. We need this cap. It's a modest start. And we know that Uber and Lyft have been spending millions of dollars to attack our campaign. And we, as united workers, are here to say, standing with allies, that it is time for the city of New York to do right by the workers. New York City has the highest income inequality in the entire country. Mayor de Blasio on Friday said one of the reasons that he campaigned for re-election was to address the historic inequality in our city. Well, we believe that fighting to protect the livelihoods of 100,000 yellow and FHV drivers in New York City is a starting point to addressing that income inequality. And so, to begin with, I would like to turn the attention over to one of our Uber members who was there in 2015 when we fought for this cap, has remained vigilant in this fight throughout these 3 years, can answer directly to a company like Lyft, which has argued that the reason they're against the cap is because they say 25% of the drivers leave the company within a year. Well, there's an easy answer to that. Treat the drivers better. Pay the drivers more. Don't just keep flooding the streets with vehicles so you can keep a revolving door turning of desperate workers while you destroy full-time jobs of 100,000 working men and women in one of the richest countries, one of the richest cities in the world, where a large workforce is suffering through poverty because these companies have a business model that puts the workers last. And because they have outspent Walmart, Microsoft, and Amazon combined in 2016 on lobbyists in order to buy their way out of regulation. We know that Uber and Lyft were also circulating a proposal to create a hardship fund in exchange for regulation. We're also here, yellow cab drivers, to say, you can't buy us out. You can't buy your way out of regulation. We want regulation that protects the interests of all the drivers in this industry. They cannot throw their money around, wave their money around at people that are desperate and hope that it means that they'll get their way out of regulation. Regulation is the only thing that will bring stability back to this industry and keep a workforce of 100,000 people from going deeper into poverty. The City Council is taking the right action, and we urge them to vote yes on Wednesday, August 8th.
City Council action now! 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 City Council action now!
The workers united will never be defeated. The workers
United!
You never be defeated!
The workers
United!
Will never be defeated!
The workers
United!
You never be defeated!
The workers
United!
You never be defeated!
Okay, I'd like to... Bhayravi Desai, B-H-A-I-R-A-V-I, Desai, D-E-S-A-I. I'm the executive director of the New York Taxi Workers Alliance, which has over 21,000 members. I'd like to turn over now to Inder Parmar, longtime New York City professional driver, including for Uber.
Hi everybody, my name is Inder Parmar, I-N-D-E-R, last name is Parmar, P-A-R-M-A-R. I've been driving for Uber since 2013. In 1900, when factories were exploiting labor, all the political leaders got together and they made the rules. Today we need the rules for the drivers because we are getting exploited by the Uber. Uber used to pay us $2.60 a mile in 2013. Today they pay us $1.25 a mile. I cannot drive 1,000 miles to make my money. In city, the traffic is traveling at less than 10 miles an hour. I can do limited miles. If I make $3 a mile, I make a $3 a mile. But if I make $1.25, I'm getting exploited. I'm lucky one because all my 3 kids are out of college. If they would have been in college, I would most probably would have to sell my house for their college fees or something. Today I'm getting financial help from my kids because they came out of colleges and they're doing full-time jobs. But I need this help. We need city council to help the drivers, make the rules. This way the drivers get benefited. Thank you.
Hey Uber, you cannot buy us. Hey Uber, you cannot buy us. Hey Uber, you cannot buy us.
I'd like to actually now call to the stage one of our longtime allies, a leader of the Taxis for All campaign, Edith Prentice. One thing that's not widely reported is that this cap has one important exception. We can lower it. It's okay.
I'll pretend I'm tall.
The exception is that these companies can add new vehicles as long as those vehicles are wheelchair accessible cars. And that's something that Uber and Lyft conveniently keep forgetting to mention.
If Uber and Lyft spent the $1 million they're spending on ads and everything, we could have a hell of a lot of accessible taxis in New York City. You know, it's really ridiculous. They have been fighting us. When did they come into New York? 2010. Yeah, God, I can't remember this. In 2010. Unfortunately, they really shouldn't have been ever allowed to come into New York in violation of the for-hire vehicle rule, but that's water under the bridge. The issue is at this point, they got what they wanted, they're still not happy, and they're still not having accessible vehicles. Your drivers need accessible vehicles, we certainly need accessible vehicles, and hopefully we will win. We can only hope. But we have been fighting for this for over 17 years. The Uber and Lyft have approximately 283 accessible vehicles. I can't even figure out how small a percentage that is. But we certainly hope that the council does stand strong, the TLC stands strong, and hopefully we'll all win. Thank you.
Right.
Hey Uber, you can't stop us. 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 Hey Uber, you can't stop us.
Okay, I'd now like to call upon Sister Shirley Abadal, who is the vice president, one of the vice presidents at SCIU Local 32 BJ, who has been standing on the front lines with us throughout this fight.
Voy a hablar un poquito en español, si está bien. Buenas tardes a todos. Estamos aquí apoyando a los que guían los carros, ¿verdad? Los taxis aquí en Nueva York. Aquí estamos pidiendo o exigiendo legislación del concilio y el alcalde para proteger a todos los que guían taxis aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York. ¿Y qué es lo que hace Uber? Uber pone un montón de carros en la calle y ellos siguen ganando dinero mientras que los drivers ganan menos y menos. So we're here today to support the drivers who keep this city moving. Uber makes money. The more cars they put on the street, the more money they make. But what happens? The less money the drivers make. They are exploiting these drivers, paying them less and less and getting less and less work because they have decided to flood the market while they continue to make a profit off the backs of good, hardworking, decent people. Behind me, workers are holding up signs with the names of 6 drivers that committed suicide Why? Not just because they are driving and they're working in poverty. They're working in debt. They are working in debt. And in their despair, they chose to take their lives because of the desperate situation that they have been put in because of Uber and Lyft. This has to end now. Esto tiene que acabar ahora. Las muertes de estos 6 compañeros guiadores de taxi fue porque están guiando en deuda. No solamente en pobreza, pero en deuda. Y escogieron coger sus vidas para salirse de esa desesperación. Solo urgimos al concilio que pasen esta legislación. Que pasen la legislación para que baste ya este abuso. Gracias.
City Council action now! 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 City Council action now!
All right. I don't know if there are any questions that any of you might have. I'd like to open it up for questions. Sure, yeah.
Darren, when was the last time you spoke to council leadership about the bills, the confidence that they have enough votes to do it on Wednesday, things like that?
I mean, we've been out on the streets organizing. We've been reading the papers as you guys are reporting. We take them at their word. All the comments we've seen so far publicly from the speaker and the mayor have been really positive. And so we feel that there's real momentum this time and that we're not going to be disappointed. This is a city council that's not going to so easily cave in, you know, to Wall Street's money.
What would you say to Reverend Olchak? I'm sure that you know his position. And he said that before talking about a cap, why don't we address the issue that many African American men and women facing that can't get a yellow card?
Well, we would say you can address both of these issues simultaneously. First of all, we've had a civil rights initiative which we put out. Last week, I believe on Tuesday, the speaker and the mayor jointly announced plans to open up the Office of Inclusion at the TLC. That's something that we supported. And if you go on our website, you'll see we have a 9-point initiative which talks about trainings, which also talks about changes in the taxi technology, and talks about like education and peer-to-peer programs. And what our number 9 point was to have some sort of an office at the TLC to oversee the program. So I believe that there is a serious, through all of these years, whenever the city would talk about addressing race-based refusals, it would only be in punitive measures. This is the first time in 20 years that I know of where the city is actually taking a comprehensive look and working with us, the drivers, to actually address it in a way that we think is systematic and will produce real change. But we don't think that the cap is the same issue. We don't see the cap as a civil rights issue. We see addressing race-based refusals as a civil rights issue. We see addressing the poverty that drivers face every day, particularly a workforce of mostly immigrants of color. We see that as a civil rights issue. We believe that we need both this Office of Inclusion and a broader, systematic proposal, and we need a cap to stop the economic bleeding across this workforce.
And I don't know if I can ask Shirley in Spanish, responding in Spanish. I want to ask her about communities of color, minority communities. Here in Vancouver, Uber, Lyft, all these services go to their neighborhoods before maybe they couldn't get a cab. What do you think to those who see this gap as something bad for their communities? ¿Qué le diría a esas personas que piensan que este freno al crecimiento de estos servicios le va a permitir
person passed away, and there's 100,000 plus.
Nadie está quitándole servicio a las comunidades hispanas o afroamericanos. Simplemente y hay muchos hispanos y afroamericanos que guían taxis y taxis de Uber y Lyft. Y el problema es que las compañías como Uber y Lyft están explotando esas personas que guían los taxis. Y estamos aquí a exhortar que paren esa explotación, no cortar los servicios, sino limitar la cantidad de licencias nuevas en los próximos 12 meses para parar en la explotación que está ocurriendo ahora mismo, que está ocurriendo en nuestras mismas comunidades, porque la gente que están guiando Lyft y Uber en nuestras comunidades son de nuestras comunidades y están siendo explotados también.
What do you make of that claim from Uber and Lyft that a cap would disproportionately impact people in the outer road?
It's, you know what, Uber does not have a supply problem, it has an efficiency problem. There are over 30,000 vehicles operating in the city streets, 80,000 of them affiliated directly with Uber and Lyft alone. 42% of the time, the cars are empty. 85% of the drivers are earning below minimum wage. Uber and Lyft need to dispatch so the current drivers can get more work. They don't need to keep saturating the streets with vehicles. When they do, it's the current group of Uber and Lyft drivers that are the first in line to take a hit. You know, Uber and Lyft are painting the false narrative that there's a supply problem in order to cover up the fact that they have an efficiency problem.
There will be some critics of the plan argue that having the number of vehicles on the road without capping the number of drivers will create kind of a similar taxi medallion situation.
It's just not true. Okay, first of all, the city council has announced not only this cap, which would be voted on August 8th, the Speaker's office has also announced that to take up one of our other proposals, which is to have the city regulate the lease and financing costs that FHV drivers pay. Sometimes you have a car with 35,000 miles on it, and you end up paying $70,000 because there is no cap, there's no regulation on how much these leasing and financing companies are charging. There's rampant predatory lending in the industry. And so the city council has already vowed to address that through legislation. And so, and the majority of the cars, the FHV cars for Uber and Lyft, they're owned by the individual, right? They're going to be able to keep, to keep renewing. If you are an individual, if you're an Uber or Lyft driver who right now is leasing to buy the car, so you don't have the vehicle license right now, and you finish your payments in the course of the year, you will be able to apply for your own vehicle license and keep your car on the road.
What about the fear that you have a too large pool of drivers? More drivers will enter the industry in this year-long period, but the number of vehicles will stay the same, and there will be kind of agreements, where you have multiple drivers driving the same vehicle, and still depressing wages for this pool of drivers. How do you respond to this?
You know what? The people out there who are claiming that Uber and Lyft drivers, that FHV drivers are going to double shift their cars, they are people who know nothing about this industry. Yellow cabs have been double shifted for years. FHV cars for over 30 years have not been double shifted. And let me tell you why. If you are the car owner, you are very careful about who you lease your car out to, because you have to pay for the repairs in case there's an accident. And if you keep your car on the road 24/7, you end up paying more for maintenance. So and of course if you have a second driver on that car with you, your insurance cost goes up. So in the FHV industry, these cars are single shifted. Also, look at the schedules of most Uber and Lyft drivers. You work the morning rush hour, then you take off for a few hours, then you work the evening rush hour. What hours of the day are they going to go out and find another driver just to work like from 1 a.m. until 6 a.m.? For 5 hours, you're going to double shift to a second driver? It's not real. And you know, the Uber and Lyft, these companies, I'm not surprised they're spreading these lies. Obviously, they don't talk to drivers. They don't know about the lives of the people that are making them their money. You know, because any FHV driver can tell you that's not how the industry works.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You know that like Uber and Lyft are not really traditional, you know, FHV services. You know?
They discourage double shifting even more. These are the same companies that encourage people who have a private car to go and put a TLC plate on it and drive it commercially. You know, a lot of the drivers for Uber and Lyft, 25% of them are part-time. They're working, you know, they're driving their cars to their full-time job, and they're working during the rush hours for Uber and Lyft. How are they going to go and lease their car out to another driver? It's just not the reality of this industry. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Driver power!
Union power!
Driver